It is my nerd world, Depeche Mode, the podcast, and I'm your host, Jon Justice, here once again to talk about all things the greatest band on the face of the planet. Got a couple of news items this week as we await Martin and Dave and the rest of the band to head back out on tour on September 21st in Mexico. Also have some listener feedback to get to. First, let's dive into this news item. Death Cab for Cutie and the Postal Service, two bands that I like. Not huge fans of. I have a smattering of their songs in my playlists. I do own the Postal Service album, which I like quite a bit from a number of years ago. However, Death Cab for Cutie and the Postal Service were touring and are touring. They united on stage the other night to cover Enjoy the Silence. Dentel and Jenny Lewis, who complete the Postal Service lineup on Benjamin Gibbard's double duty tour, came out during the encore of the tour opener at the Anthem in Washington, D.C. Now, to avoid getting hit with any sort of copyright strikes, I'm not including the audio. I am including a link in the notes for this week's podcast. So if you happen to be watching on YouTube, look down. There is a link to the YouTube clip, or if you're listening on whatever podcast platform you happen to be listening on, you can find it in the notes. Check it out. It's shot from a fan, but it's actually pretty good quality. It's a nice cover. If you're familiar with Death Cab for Cutie and certainly the Postal Service, it falls right in line with what they sound like. Still very much keeping to the original feel of Enjoy the Silence. One thing of note, if you watch the video, the light show is really cool. I actually saw a clip from a previous Death Cab for Cutie show, and they must be using the same lighting team that they used on a previous tour, because it was from a number of years ago, and I go, oh, that looks very similar, but different stage and lighting setup. And I love stage setups, especially bands that really go out of their way. One of the reasons why I love Depeche Mode so much is their live shows are just incredible, and certainly took off in terms of quality going into the World Violation and Devotional tours, which we've talked about here as of late, how Anton Corbijn went a bit over the top on the Devotional tour. But definitely check out the video, obviously, for the cover that they did of Enjoy the Silence, but also check out the their stage presence display. That was pretty darn cool. Peter 2, Too on Twitter, grabbed this from another media outlet that posted this online, so I'm kind of getting it third and fourth hand here, but falls in line with what Peter Gordino had said, and I'd reported on the show a couple of podcasts ago, that the band's going to be recording for the live Blu-ray DVD release of the Memento Mori tour, filmed by Anton Corbijn in Mexico City. And I can't help but wonder if this news here is going to be a part of that, and the wires are getting crossed a bit. But Depeche Mode will record a special in Mexico City. Now, for the weekend, the Depeche Mode will be in Mexico, the report says, and already without Andy Fletcher, the band members, the members of the British band, instead of partying or going out, plan to walk around the city making testimonials and videos for a special that they're working on for a TV network in England. We found out that they will be at least a week, and in addition to the concerts, they're inviting some fans, people from the technical team, and acquaintances of the country to give their opinions of the show. Now, this may indeed be accurate, and that they are filming a special for European TV. I also think there's a possibility that this could be part of the filming that's being done for the Blu-ray and DVD concert release of the tour that Anton Corbijn is supposed to be filming. As Peter Gordino mentioned to a fan backstage, Mexico City was where they're going to be recording this. They're doing 3 nights there, 3 or 4. I know they're doing 3 for sure. And Anton is obviously known in the live releases to go and add supplemental material, especially interviews with the fans. If they're bringing in technical people from the tour to talk about the tour itself and the live show, then perhaps this could be a little bit different than what we've seen Anton do in the past for previous releases. So I think this could all be a part of that, or it could actually just be for a television program in Europe. Either way, a lot of exciting things coming even after, as the tour continues. And I imagine we'll probably get that Blu-ray live release sometime going into next year. Still anticipating potentially the release of the box set and those 4 unreleased, fully produced tracks from the sessions of Memento Mori. As always, any thoughts that you have on anything that I'm talking about on the show, be sure to drop me an email, talkshownerd@gmail.com. Or if you're watching the video, I got video this week for this week's episode up on YouTube. If you want to see my big old smiling face, you can leave a comment up on YouTube, and I'll grab those as well. All right, let's get to your listener feedback this week. I missed this from last week, so Stephanie, I apologize for being a week behind and mentioning your comment, but it's actually relevant to what I was just talking about. John, did you know there's a new book about Depeche Mode Live that's coming out in Germany in October? It's by the same author as Monument. I've already secured a ticket for the reading. Best regards, Germany and Stephanie. I was not aware of this. I know we do have the One Mode book coming out very soon. I took a look at some of the press releases, and yeah, it looks to be on par with what the author originally did with Monument, which to me is one of the best compilations of everything the band has put out up until Spirit. It looks to be very much the same, but on the live front. So hopefully they end up doing an English version of it, as I do not know how to speak German. Although it could be worthy just to get for the pictures that are involved in it as well, or included in the book. But that would be another nice companion if they're as comprehensive as Monument was to all of the band's releases, but doing it as it relates to the concerts. That could really be something that I want to get my hands on. So thank you, Stephanie. I had not seen that, and I appreciate it. Mr. Kavandi writes, favorite remixes. So we've got Enjoyed the Silence, the Quad Final Remix, Oberkorn Development Mix, all good calls. I mean, how can you say bad calls to any of these remixes? Leave in Silence, the Carlo Intellecto mix, the Carlo Intellecto The Last Time remix for The Last Time remix, sorry. Dream On, the Bushwacka Tough Guy mix. Yeah, that one's okay. That era wasn't great in terms of remixes, and they kind of went downhill since then, but the Bushwacka mix was good. Everything Counts, Oliver Hunteman and Stefan Bodzin dub. Halo Goldfrapp remix. Yeah, that's a good one, too. And, again, the Heaven Oli remix. Boy, with so many people including that, and thank you to friend of the show and friend of mine, Matt, for turning me back onto that particular mix. It's one of those things where I wonder if the band is aware of that. Like, I could see them doing that mix live, as Heaven just didn't go over live, and I can't imagine a circumstance where they would bring that back. Obviously it was played on the Delta Machine tour, but, it was one of Dave's slow ones, and it had to be done, even though Martin wrote it, right? Thank you for your list of remixes, though. All right, Gareth writes in and says this. I wanted to give you some thoughts on why I think DM owe their U.S. fans a lot, just to add some evidence to why you definitely deserve an interview with the band. Yeah, I've got my correspondence out. I'm just praying that I get a response. I think I've found the proper people to connect to try to get the interview, and I've got the requests out, but I haven't heard back yet. If you know somebody, Jeff, I'm talking to you, but if you know somebody that's got a connection to get me an interview, that would be really helpful. Yeah. All right. Gareth goes on to say, Britain 8182 and DM, we're at the tail end of the very first wave of UK synth bands, Ultravox, OMD, Human League, etc. And they had their initial run of big hits, and we all knew who they were through Mag's Top of the Pops, live appearances, kids' TV shows. As things progressed into the mid-'80s, a lot of the other synth bands had already peaked by 86, and most of them were past their best or had split up. Synth music was passé, and a lot of us had moved on to other bands like The Cure, U2, Echo and the Bunnymen, or Simple Minds. Depeche Mode seemed to be operating outside the mainstream, well away from anything that was considered fashionable, but were quietly crafting and developing their sound. By the time Black Celebration and Music for the Masses Their UK fan base would generally get their singles into the top 20, occasionally in the top 10. They could fill 3,000, 10,000 seat venues. The press, however, seemed to have no time for them. As they matured, they were not pop enough for pop mags like Smash Hits, but not indie enough for The Enemy, and often would take a critical hammering. Not sexy enough for their Black Celebration was one quote. So when they get to the U.S. and realize they have an incredibly enthusiastic fan base that can fill arenas and eventually the Rose Bowl, it must have given them a real sense of justification in what they were doing, away from the standoffish nature of the British music press, who at the time really didn't get them at all. Combine these fans with name checks from musicians like techno pioneer Derek May, citing them as an influence, and the U.S. must have seen more like home than home. I know they were concurrently hugely popular in places like Germany and Eastern Europe, but for UK bands to this day, to make it in the US is always seen as a pinnacle of success and very special. You guys made DM hugely successful, but not recognized on the street famous, which is quite a gift. Regarding my own Mode story, I credit an American girlfriend I met in university with getting me into the band, and she loved them. We saw them in Edinburgh on the Music for the Masses tour, and I've seen them several times since, Devotional Tour being a highlight for me. So thanks for the podcast. Good luck with the interview. We're all rooting for you, Gareth. Thank you, Gareth. That was a fantastic email, and I really do appreciate that. I appreciate everybody that writes in, so thank you for that. And lastly, we go to Richard Gomez, who writes this. I may get through this episode at record speed this week. First, John, thank you for featuring my Depeche Mode story on your June 21st episode. And every time I finish one of your podcasts, I think to myself, I need to write in and share, then life gets in the way, and I don't. I know what that feels like. So this email will be a series of hodgepodge bullet points, or hodgepodge maybe, bullet points, commenting on previous topics. So tour gear. I had the opportunity to see the boys in L.A. on March 28th. I chose to wear a shirt I made paying tribute to the late Andy Fletcher. See the attached photo. Yes, thank you for that. The front has a silhouette of Fletcher, and the back lists every tour and date I've attached. That's a fantastic idea. Could I fit 33 tour dates on the back of a shirt? 34 come November? Thanks, Matt. I recently secured tickets for the December 12th show, and I will also be adding that date to my shirt. I'm excited to see them again, and I'm curious to find out if they make any changes to their set list. Don't Say You Love Me video. People are really, give me in the hands of a video producer, and I'll direct the video for Don't Say You Love Me. How's that? Again, my idea of making sort of a gothic castle and two couples talking to each other, potentially vampires, doing the lyrics back and forth. That's the short version. I love the idea of a black and white video for an old castle. For a closing scene, I would like to see the camera focus on Dave's Enjoy the Silence robe and crown hanging in a corner as the frame fades out. Yes. We can crowdfund this, everybody. Come on, let's get on board. I'll do a GoFundMe. I'm kidding. Remixes. One of my favorite remixes is the split mix, Never Let Me Down. As I mentioned in a previous email, I fell in love with the sounds of Never Let Me Down, aggro mix, and I also love the version they've been using on tour. I feel that the split mix is a great combination of both. The book, thank you for suggesting the Every Album, Every Song book. I've been reading about each song while listening to that specific song. I'm really enjoying the experience of listening to every album in order again. I've also realized that there are some older songs that I love that I wish I could hear live once again. Puppets, Speak and Spell, and Free State from Ultra. Puppets from Speak and Spell, Free State from Ultra. Reading the book while listening to the music also affirms that every song was carefully chosen in a specific order for each album. Brilliant. Lastly, one thing I really appreciate from Depeche Mode is that every album other than Black Celebration has its own name, and it's not named after one of their songs. Interesting. I think artists who name albums after one of their songs in the album are lazy. Of course, other than Black Celebration. I admire Depeche Mode for seeing each of their albums as a piece of art that deserves its own name. Black Celebration doesn't really bother me, even though it shares the name of one of their songs. It describes the whole album perfectly. Having a Black Celebration song as the album's opener is perfect and an introduction to the experience. I love the podcast, and thank you for what you do. Thank you, Ricardo Gomez, and I love your email. So, that wraps up the show for this week. Under 15 minutes, it might be a record. there'll be a lot more to talk about once the band heads out on tour, and I've also been really busy this week as well. So, as always, thank you so much for checking out Depeche Mode, the podcast. I greatly appreciate it. And as I mentioned, if you like science fiction, go check out my science fiction space opera series. I got a lot of Depeche Mode-inspired Easter eggs, both direct and indirect, while telling an exciting science fiction space opera story. Amazon.com or mynerdworld.net. And if you want to purchase books directly from me, you can purchase paperbacks directly from me. Just email talkshownerd@gmail.com and let me know which of the books in the 7-book series that you would like to get your hands on. I usually get them out within a few days. You can usually get it in about a week, and I'll autograph them too. And it's a slightly cheaper price than buying them on Amazon.com. So just email me, talkshownerd@gmail.com. You can listen on Kindle Unlimited. Read them on Kindle Unlimited as well, and they are available in audiobook. All right, I hope wherever you are, you're happy, you're healthy, you're safe, and I'll talk to you again next week with more Depeche Mode news. Bye.
Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Dave Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to